Hello, Facebook, family, and friends. How's everybody today? We hope you all are doing well. We are here, and I'm your host, Louise Hicks of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And I have our special guest here today. Here we are, Minister Fred Shaw. And we have a great topic for you today, which is how important is therapy in your daily life compared to other methods. And that's the subtopic. The major topic is bringing psychiatry under the law. And we have our expert PhD person here, Minister Fred Shaw. And for those of you who may not have met him or seen him on the show, he is a regular. And we'll allow him to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself. And again, I am Louise Hicks, your host of this podcast, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, where we come on every Sunday. And if I'm not on, usually I'm going to share something with you if I'm not on, but I try my best to get on here every Sunday so that we can bring you some content that's relevant to your daily life and helping you to live your best life. By the way, go to my YouTube channel, AIM, that's AIMED, the number 2, Purpose Radio, Aim to Purpose Radio. Subscribe because there's great content out here to help you with your daily life. And also give it a thumbs up, leave your comments. And let's go ahead now and allow our special guest of today, Minister Fred Shaw, to tell you a little bit about himself. Okay. And thank you all for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much, Sister Hicks. I appreciate you always allowing me to come and express my viewpoint on the field of mental health. It is more important that we know what is truly going on in this field than in most places. I do want to mention that you are a member of our task force. You recently received an award for the work you do, primarily having me come on your show. And so the purpose of this is to educate people in what is really going on in that field. You mentioned therapy, you mentioned things like that. And really, therapy can only be as effective as the therapist. When you give people proper therapy, you're actually helping them find the root to their problem. You're not telling them the problem, you're helping them find the problem. What was the incident that threw them over off their course? What was the incident that changed their life? What went down? We sometimes can think the incident is what we would feel should be the incident when that may not be the incident for the individual. So therapy has a responsibility for it to work, is to be able to find out what the person feel is wrong, not what we tell him is wrong. So that's one of the things that we have to look at with therapy, which is different from treatment. See, because treatment, you find such things as electric shock, you find things such as the mass drugging of people in our country. I think we have in America 80 million people that are on psychotropic drugs, 6.1 million children. We're a medicated nation. Those treatments are not bringing the result that they're intended to, if they were ever intended to bring the positive results that we thought they should bring. They haven't done it. When we look out at our society right now, we see that the homeless population has exploded, and we see that as a whole, the homeless population is being misdiagnosed. You cannot just say because a person is homeless, they're mentally ill. You can say maybe they didn't organize, they didn't handle their business the way they should, they didn't spend their money the way they should and stuff, but you got NBA players that have made millions of dollars who are broke right now. So just because you don't know how to handle money, especially when you go into our schools and we don't seem to get a good solution for handling money, I think that, to just say that or categorize people who are homeless as mentally ill should not be the case. Are there people who are homeless that are mentally ill? Absolutely, there are some. But
Right.
the greater question might become, how did they get there? You know, what was done to them? What percentage of those, these are questions that will not be asked, by the way, other than by Citizens Commission on Human Rights. CCHR is the only group that asks these type of questions. But what happened and what was the effectiveness of the treatment that the person got? And were they acting the way they act now prior to being put on the medications? See, that's the big
Yes.
thing. We don't want to answer that question because most people already know the answer. We know that a person was depressed, that a person was going through trying times, that a person's life got turned upside down. But then when they're putting on those medications, you start seeing the violence, you start seeing the suicides, you start seeing people drop dead, you see all types of bizarre behaviors and things. Even though they said in the commercials, what they have convinced us through our doctors, that all drugs have side effects. Well, you got artificial intelligence now that can tell
Right.
you which drugs can cause extra problems, which combinations don't fit. When you're talking about a side effect, you're talking about things that do not work together properly. So, and they only call it a side effect because, in quotes, it's the unattended result. But drugs do what drugs do. So if you have an effect, that's the way I call it. It's not a side effect, it's the effect of the drug. You throw side effect, oh, this isn't what we want to do, this isn't what we intended to happen, but it happens. And if it happens in you and it happens in the man down the street and it happens in me and the man in the next country, then that drug creates that effect. So it's not a side effect. It is the effect.
It is
Just like
the effect.
hell from the drug, just like it might stop your infection, just like it might help with certain bodily functions and things. Well, that's the effect of the drug. It's not a side effect of the drug. So neither is the other side a side effect. It is just what the drugs do.
And you're right, because like you said, when we see all these commercials, that's a lot of it. It tells you right there. And again, everyone, I'm Louise Hicks, the host of this podcast, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, where we come to you every Sunday and sometimes during the week to bring you important information, not only about mental health awareness, but various other topics that should be concerning to all of us, particularly us as Black people, since we are economically at the bottom of the barrel right now. And we need to work on ourselves and work to build up our community rather than tearing it down. Like some of us, there are lots of podcasts out here, but many of them are not elevating. And this podcast I started is about elevation, particularly of our people, Black people, to help us to come into more of an awareness of what we need to do ourselves in order to elevate us, because nobody is going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And I always say we have to do it spiritually, emotionally, mentally, intellectually, economically, physically, and socially. Those are important elements that we have to look at within our own community, and mental health is a major part of that. And that's why I always bring in Minister Shaw to talk about mental health. And today it is about bringing psychiatry under the law. So let me ask you this question, Minister Shaw. Has psychiatry ever been under the law? Can you tell us that?
Well, actually, it's funny you say that. You can say yes and no.
Okay.
It has not been under the law in the sense that they can incarcerate people against their will, and they can do treatments to you while you're in incarceration against your will. Basically, you lose your rights when you're in a mental institution. So that's not being up under the law. We should never lose our rights. If my son is in a mental institution, then he should have the right to dictate what drugs he takes, if he should receive electroshock or not, or things like that. If he's not capable, then there should be a family member that is informed fully with what could be the bad results of being electroshocked or being on these drugs before the decision is made. So you're supposed to have informed consent. They don't have informed consent. They weren't up under the law when they had the psychiatric prison camps in South Africa. They supposed to have been up under the law, but they wasn't up under the law. When you take a person, you know, and as we got up in San Francisco, I haven't been able to fully verify it other than a couple of people testifying or making the statement, I say, not testifying, that it happened to them. When you can swoop a person up off the street and put them in a mental institution, and then keep them there for 72 hours. I tell people of the story of a young lady I knew who was dating a psychiatrist, and she got sick one time, and while she was there, they put her in a mental institution. She went to the doctor, and then they put her in a mental institution. So then she noticed every time after that, she'd get in a big argument with him, her boyfriend, and then she would be put in a mental institution. Well, what makes him right argument? But then what happened is evidently some psychiatrists in the institute, this was a very pretty girl. And because she was so pretty, he said, "What are you doing in here, pretty lady?" And they had a conversation. And the psychiatrist at the facility said, "There seems to be nothing wrong with you." So he released her. Well, she normally would have called her boyfriend and said, "Come get me." But what she did, she had a little money or whatever, or they didn't take her credit card or whatever it was. She called a cab. And when she got home, there was a woman in the house. And what it came down to is that every time her boyfriend's outside girlfriend was coming into town, he put on a 72-hour hold. And so now this is what she told me. So if it's a lie, she told it. But the thing is it can be done just that simple. Somebody can declare that you are mentally ill because you do this show and you have the hot topics. And if they can draw, well, I've seen her doing this, they may be able to get you picked up. In the future, we got to be very careful with leaders because they can be picked up. I know a state senator who, in Georgia, who said that her sister was brilliant and may still be in certain ways, but something happened. They don't know if somebody spiked her drink. They don't know if something was occurring with her physically. They don't know. But somehow she ended up in the hands of a mental institution. And before the family could get to her, she'd been electroshocked. And she was never the same after that. So, now they'll tell you that these stories are rare, but I don't know if they are. I don't know if they're any rarer than when we see police abuse in the street. I know at the same time that Floyd, what's the brother name? Floyd, who was killed. Well, at the same time, a young man by the name of Cornelius Frederick.
You talking about George Floyd?
Yeah. At the same time, a young man named Cornelius Frederick threw a sandwich in a mental institution. He was about 14, somewhere between 14 to 16. He threw a sandwich at a mental institution, and before it was all over, he was dead. Now, we didn't get the marches on him. There was a 6-year-old who, two big orderlies, grown men, held in a position where he couldn't breathe, and he died, 6 years old. Where's the people who say there is a specific way you handle a 6-year-old? My daughter, when her daughter was 6 years old and couldn't get away, start crying, my daughter used to say, "Okay, you go up to your room and shut the door. You can cry, you got a right to be mad. You go up to your room and shut the door. You don't have a right to upset our good time." but you can go up there and cry as long as you want to. Of course, yeah, I don't want to go upstairs. Well, you either stop it or you go upstairs. I mean, we can handle kids like that. We don't have to hold them in restricted positions. And this isn't the first kid by no means. There's been other kids of all colors, by the way.
Of course.
You know, so who do we call mentally ill? The kid that threw the sandwich, or the people who choked him out to where he died and didn't even have a measurement in their own head of when to stop?
Right.
Law enforcement officers, martial artists have put people to sleep a lot of times with sleeper holes and stuff. If you keep holding the hole, you can kill them. Most of them know when the person is no longer responding. And at that point, you can let them go. Or you can even feel them getting weak and not being able to fight and stuff. At that point, you can let them go. So why do we have to get these deaths, especially in mental institutions that are underreported? Let me tell you what needs to be brought back under the law. This will be dear to the women out there. Do you know a pretty woman in a mental institution can be prey? Because if somebody comes in and sexually assaults you, by the time the report gets up to where it needs to be, by the time law enforcement gets actually called in, by the time all the evidence is gone. And then the psychiatrist can say, well, you know, she's on these medications and sometimes they cause you to hallucinate.
Mm-hmm.
Time a person's fears come out to the forefront and it hasn't actually happened, but they believe it's happening because they're in the confinement. They can give you all these explanations. So then that means the person who actually got assaulted did not get justice. Now, I'm not going to pretend that some people don't make up things. I know people not in mental institutions that have made up things on people.
True.
So, you know, but there has to be a balance. There has to be an ongoing citizen panel, just like you do a juror in a criminal case. There has to be somebody that monitor the complaints of psychiatry other than psychiatry.
Absolutely.
If we say there should be civilian review boards on police, how come we are not talking about the same thing on mental hospitals?
How come we're not? Can you expound on that? Because the topic today, again, everyone, I'm Louise Hicks, the host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. We have with us Minister Fred Shaw, who is the part of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. And he's an expert in this field, been in it for a long, long time. And I have him on this show frequently because mental health awareness is so important in our daily lives, particularly in our lives as Black people, because we tend not to go to therapy when we need it. And a lot of us are in denial about therapy when we really do need therapy from a legitimate therapist, or like he's spoken about before. So today we're talking about bringing psychiatry under the law. And the answer when I asked, has it ever been under the law, psychiatry? And Minister Shaw said yes and no. And he went on to explain his answer to my question. And as far as to further this conversation now, why is it that psychiatry has become such a powerful force in our society, where now we have all of these people on these psychotropic drugs and no problems are being solved by psychiatrists? Because if they were, we wouldn't have all these people in institutions, whether it be locked or unlocked, that they're calling rehabilitation facilities. So why is it that they have become so powerful, where anybody that walks into an office, they tend to be, the first thing is to put you on a medication as opposed to having some talk therapy? And that's why the subtopic is about therapy as opposed to other. How can we have therapy in our daily lives as compared to other methods? And he was talking about some of these methods of shock treatment and medication. And as we can see, it's not getting any better in terms of our society. We have more people in going to mental institutions, more people on drugs. So why is psychiatry such a powerful force in our society? Do you think it will be brought under the law?
Oh, I think eventually it would be brought under the law. The problem is that they intentionally or accidentally got an ally that is powerful enough and who have turned them basically in. And I'm speaking for me, because everything that I say, I want to clarify, is not necessarily the words of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. They may agree with a lot of things, but there's public statements I make because I wear many hats. I wear a hat as the NAACP president. I wear a hat as the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. I wear a hat as the mental health chair for the Western region of mental health director for the Western region of the National Action Network. I wear many hats. So when I'm speaking sometime, I can get one group accused of what I said, and that might not be, because your knowledge is your knowledge. So sometimes where you pulled it from, you may forget. The thing is this: the pharmaceuticals are very powerful. The first thing I want you to know is I am not anti-pharmaceutical. Anti-pharmaceutical is not a good thing, because pharmaceuticals make drugs that benefit us. They make insulin. They make drugs that help you control your diabetes. They make treatments that can help with cancer and all types of different diseases. So I want to make it clear I'm not anti-pharmaceutical. However, when it comes to these psychiatric drugs and what has been displayed as the properties connected to them, that's a different story. And so what makes the psychiatrist powerful is because of the drugs, they don't have to give you a therapy session. What they can do, and the only reason why I know, because I've done it and they've done it to me, you go in and the doctor says, what's wrong? You tell him over a 3-minute span or 4, or whatever it takes you to express it, what's going on. Then he says to you, I can prescribe you 2 drugs, or I can prescribe you a drug, or I can prescribe. Now, what did that mean? He heard you and he took action. Now, if he was putting me in a therapy session, he gets $350 an hour. If he puts me on medication and can sign off that he treated me, he gets credit for that hour, even though it was 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So now he can see me, he can see you, he can see 2 other people or 1 other person, and now that becomes $1,000 or $1,200 an hour.
It's a money thing then.
It's always trace it to the money. It's almost as if you can say, no matter what is wrong, that continues to be wrong, trace it to the money.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so we have seen where the majority of the people who make the decisions when it comes to these drugs work for the pharmaceutical companies. So everybody know you don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Right.
So drugs get passed that may not under normal circumstances get passed. I watched the hearing and people came up and testified how their wife being put on psychotropic drugs killed both of the children, and how a woman comes and talks about trying to kill herself. And then the FDA sat there and said, I see no legitimate evidence that these drugs cause anything. See, even after you hear the people drugs did to them.
Well, let me ask you this then. why is it that when they have these commercials, they tell you on these commercials that it can cause suicidal tendencies and all other kind of side, well, effects, as you said earlier. They are the effects, not the side effect. There are the effects. So if they can say that, then why is it that's contradictory to the commercials that are on that tells you these psychotropic drugs, they call it side effects, but they are the effects of taking these drugs.
Well, the reason they put that on TV is so that the person can be responsible for themselves. However, the way they do it, with nice songs and people playing with other people's dogs and everybody's happy, a lot of time people respond to what they see versus what they hear.
Yeah.
So, if they see me speaking in a calm, low voice, then they assume that I'm working something out with you, where I might be saying the most vicious, vile things that anybody ever heard, but they can't hear it. And my expression is I'm doing all right. Or, I could be doing something and they can hear what I'm doing, but they see me doing the good action. Let's say that I did something, hit somebody with a stun gun, and the person went down, started having a heart attack. Now, if I'm over the people screaming for help and everything, the person who saw me do that might get the idea I'm trying to help this person and forget all about that. It looked like I hit them with a stun gun. Because they see me screaming for help, they see me trying to do CPR. I may be doing it all wrong on purpose, but it looks like, and that a lot of times overrides what we should have saw instead of what we thought we saw. And so, you can have a picture where I'm like this and tell people to describe me, and they'll tell you that I got an ear over here when they can't see it. So it might not even be there. But when they describe it, because I look healed over here, they assume that I'm healed right here too, and that he had two eyes, You see what I'm saying? So I'm just putting that out there so we know that we can be tricked, even though we think we're seeing stuff. And when we look at the commercial, for example, I'm not going to call any particular brand, but there's one brand right now being sold on TV that is being sued by a law firm right now, and they advertising it on TV like everything is cool, because the amount of money they make is way more than what they're going to have to pay out over time.
That makes sense, though. Yeah, what
Yeah,
you're saying. And
yeah,
also the situation with how you're saying they put these, when they do these commercials, they're going to have something else to distract you from hearing what you need to hear. Just like you said, there's something to distract you from what you need to see and make you see something else. That's a way of programming. That's why they call it television, because they are telling you a vision. However, you're not hearing the reality of what the vision is they're telling you, because they may have these children out here playing with the grandparents or playing with the dog, and they're telling you all the time, oh, this caused this side effects, but you're not hearing the suicidal effects or the other effects of what these drugs cause, because you're so busy visually looking at the picture and seeing grandma playing with grandchild or the dog or whatever, or driving the car, a new something, a toy or whatever. So that's a way of distracting us from the truth of what these drugs can really do to you, taken over a period of time, and the effects of them that can be detrimental to your health. And they are telling you that all the time on television, which brings to mind censoring. Because if you say we were just censored. My YouTube channel, again, everyone, I'm Louise Hicks, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Power Empowerment Hour you're watching. And my YouTube channel has been censored some of my podcasts have been removed. That was done back in 2015 and 16. And these were interviews with medical doctors who are just as knowledgeable, more knowledgeable, some of them who've gone to medical school. They have practiced medicine for years and years and years, as just like Dr. Fauci has. However, if you watch some of these videos and podcasts on YouTube, they will not remove, no matter what they're talking about. They can be called, in particular, the ones that are really degrading Black women and drugs infiltrating in the Black community and all this kind of music and stuff. Oh, they don't remove that. They don't censor that. But if you have one doctor who is a medical doctor as compared to another medical doctor, where if you talk about certain issues, YouTube will remove it. And we have to, but they claim we have freedom of speech. But it's only freedom of speech if you're saying what the powers that should not be in many instances will sanction. They sanction so much stuff until it's amazing how legitimate information is out to the public. You have to be very careful on how you phrase certain information that you're talking about, because if you don't, you will be removed. But if you're on here talking about calling us as Black women these ugly names and talking about killing one another, talking about drugs in our community, they don't censor that. Now, that's what should be censored, because that's what you're doing is you are condoning bad behavior. But YouTube won't censor that. But something you're putting out there that may go opposite of what one doctor says, who has all the credentials, some higher credentials than some of the doctors you're leaving out here to give us some of these lies they're giving us. And I find that very disturbing. And this Democratic Party doesn't help any, because they are right in line with it, especially President Biden, who started these laws. And since we're talking about bringing psychiatry under law, there are other laws we need to bring under the law as well, like Hunter Biden, who should be in prison according to Biden's law that he put out there years ago, that got more Black men, women, and children in prison and juvenile. But we see his son hasn't gone to prison. He might be under investigation. So there's a double standard here. So that's why I say, how will we bring psychiatry under law when they're under the powerful influence of Big Pharma? That's going to be a challenge.
Well, bringing them under the law is a goal. And you accomplish a goal by continuously taking step after step after step. You find out how you get this legislation passed. You find out how you get that legislation. You make allies with this group. You get these people to support you over here. You put the word out the best you can over the radio airs and stuff with people like yourself who think for themselves. And you get on those airs and you talk to the public, and you keep on and you keep on. Then you start developing groups like I'm doing with mamas and with the CCHR International Task Force Against Racism and Modern Day Eugenics. I'm actually creating the blueprint of how you do this. And you can try to stay under the radar sometimes, but you get to the Congress people, you get to the Senate, and at some point, there will be a shift. Some point, some people will come up who will understand what psychiatry and other groups are doing to society. And those people will stand up and the people will back them. I don't claim to be a great fan of Trump. I do, though, recognize what I'm looking at when I see over half the people in America stand by him. Now, we can call it racism, But I have never really seen, other than the propaganda that he is a racist, that shows he's a racist. Now, if you want to make an argument that he's narcissistic, you got my rubber stamp. But that's different from being racist. That's different.
Yes.
When you give, racists don't give big sums of money to the historical Black colleges. Racists don't necessarily date African-American women. Racists don't necessarily do a lot of the things that he's being accused of. And some of the things, because I like to look in and find out what's going on, and I like to see the original tapes, he was accused of asking for the execution of the Central Park Five, the tape I saw. Now, if they got other tapes, that's different. The tape I saw, he said, if they did it, they should be executed. That is not calling for the execution. The only way that's calling for the execution is if they did it.
Did it.
Now, if racist people did the same thing to a Black woman, the Black community would probably call it for the strongest penalties of law or execution. So if it is good on one hand, then it got to be good on the other hand. Again, I'm not one of those flag-waving fans of Donald Trump. All I'm saying is when I make my judgment, it is based on who is going to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people, including or emphasized on my people. Because I watched, at one moment, it appeared that the Congress was Republican, the Senate was Republican, the Supreme Court was Republican, the president was Republican, and Black people were on the other side of the fence instead of being at the table. And then we would rather say and condemn Black people who are Republicans when Republicans are in power instead of empowering the Black people that are Republicans. Now I get this. Everybody's together on this and we hate Republicans and all of that stuff and the Democrats. But how come the Democratic Fortune 500, those that are Democrat, how many of them got Black CEOs? How many of them have promoted the way they run their mouth? How many of them have actually, how many people in Hollywood that are Black actually got the power to greenlight a movie? I mean, so we can sit back and point the finger. I want us in the Democratic, because I am a Democrat. I am a member of the Democratic Party. I want us to show the same behavior we're demanding of others. But if you are going to do, and this is not speaking for CCHR, this is personal as a minister, I wear many hats. If you're gonna abort 8-month babies, I'm not on your side. I never, ever challenged the right of a woman to do what she feels she should do with her body. I get that. However, when the baby can survive on its own, then if you kill it, it is murder. And if I shot at somebody and hit a woman in the stomach and killed that same baby at 4 months old, I go to prison for a murder.
Yes, you will.
So, and I want to emphasize, I am not trying to tell women what to do. I'm a man. I'll tell men what to do. But women have to make the decision.
They probably won't listen.
Huh? You say what?
They probably won't listen.
But the thing is, but the only point I'm trying to make up is we have to become sane, not deal with groupthink. And when people use being on medication as a fashion statement, you know, when people use electric shock and say that it benefits when the FDA's own report doesn't really show that it has great properties. When you lie on the internet and say electric shock is a mild form of electricity, when it goes to 460 volts and is turned up until you have a grand mal seizure, and the evidence is there, and the Democrat and really not even the Republicans truly look at it. Because if they did, we'd have legislation to change it. Now, the Republicans pushed and the Democrats joined when we did the Child Safety Medication Act. The Democrats joined because the NAACP got on board and pushed it that they should not force parents to put their kids on drugs as a condition for being in school. The Republicans was on that first, but because the NAACP was persuaded largely by me, working with CCHR, I was a president of the Compton branch. Then the president, Mr. Mfume, made it his resolution as the president, and when that happened, then we got Democratic support. The violation of people's rights, the demanding of people taking treatments that are not proven is a violation of our Constitution and the human rights of individuals, and it should not be tolerated. You say we need good therapy, but I remember a time when the therapist wasn't in our head. It was the men of God who were in our head. When we had a problem, we went to the church.
Right.
But I'm gonna say it over the air, but the ministers have gotten lazy. And so
well, you know what? A lot of it is not laziness, and I'm going to say it over the air. The ministers have gotten greedy. That's a lot of the problem. You have to follow the money there too, Minister Shaw. You got to follow the money there too.
You're right.
A lot of them, not all of them, I'm not saying that, but so many of them, look how they're living, how lavishly so many of these, particularly these mega ministers and their congregations are not living lavishly. Most of them are struggling just to survive. And it's so sad. And that's part of the problem too, because when we look at, and again, everyone, I'm Louise Hicks, the host of this podcast, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, where I come to you every Sunday, different times. And I usually let you know when I'm going to go live with just me or sometimes special guests like I have Minister Shaw. He's a regular on the show. And he's already shared with you that he wears many hats, identified some of those hats. And when he speaks from his own personal hat, he tells you. If he speaks from the hat of one of his entities, he will tell you then. So we're talking today about bringing psychiatry under the law. And I asked the question earlier, has it been ever under the law? It was yes and no, and he explained that. And we're also talking about how therapy can be involved in your everyday life. How does that work? Therapy versus other methods, because he's talked about that too. Therapy versus other methods like shock and all these medications. And we have to look at therapy. And when I say therapy, I'm looking at someone who has the credentials to be an educated, knowledgeable therapist that can help you to overcome the root cause of whatever may be causing you to have some anxiety or whatever you are struggling with in your life. Those are the type of therapists that I'm talking about, because there are lots of therapists out here that I would not send myself or anybody to. And I've had therapy. I still do therapy because I think it's a vital part of our lives, because we all struggle with something. I don't care how rich you are, you may struggle with something. And when we talk about these issues on this show, is to help to enlighten you and help to provide information to you to help you to live your best life. And so with that said, go to my YouTube channel again, aimed, AIMED, the number 2, purpose, PURPOSE radio, aim to purpose radio. Subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share these videos, because these, you don't know who this video may help. It may be someone out there struggling now with some psychological issue, and they may need to go to therapy, and they may be fearful to go to therapy. And a lot of us as Black people, we won't go to therapy. So it's important that we do sometimes, when necessary, seek out an educated and knowledgeable therapist so that we can get the help and support that we need. So be sure to share this video, give it a thumbs up, share, because we give out important information. And if you're willing to share some of these videos, podcasts that are peddling nonsense and helping us to destroy ourselves, they're not elevating us to a higher level of consciousness, be sure to share something that's going to provide information that's going to enhance your life. So go to AIM to Purpose, AIMED, the number 2, Purpose Radio, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, leave your comments. We'd love to hear your comments. And if it's any topic that you want us to discuss, let us know, because Minister Shaw is an expert in this field and is in this area of expertise when we talk about mental health. And I talk about mental health because I started this podcast to help elevate our Black community, because we have a lot of behavior issues. We have a lot of denial within our community. We have lack of leadership in our community, even within the home, with many Black mothers leading the home. And I'm going to be doing a master class pretty soon on helping to elevate Black women. And I'll talk more about that, and particularly Black single mothers, because many Black single mothers do struggle, and we need to stop the bashing of one another. We need to help support one another. There's so much bashing of Black men and women by one another. We need to stop that. You don't find other ethnic groups out here doing all this bashing, and that happens in the home so prevalent, where we are supposed to have fathers in the home being leaders and helping to protect their home, their wives, their families. And if you don't have that mindset, how are you going to lead in your own home? If your mindset is messed up and you're in denial, you're refusing, whether you're a man or woman, you're refusing to go seek out some therapy. And notice I didn't say seek out some drugs or seek out some shock therapy. Seek out some talk therapy so that you can get a better grip on your own mindset and understand who you are and whose you are. Understand your purpose in your own Black community. And also, I want to share this with you. Minister Shaw had mentioned this earlier. I got a certificate from this task force, and I'm a member of it. And I was so proud of it when I got it. And I'll read it to you. It says CCHR, and that's the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, International's Task Force Against Racism and Modern Day Eugenics. Task Force Dedication Award presented to Louise Hicks. Your dedication and commitment and care for the African American community truly shows through in the platform you provide. Thank you. And this is September 2023. And I want to publicly thank Minister Shaw and the Task Force Against Racism and Modern Day Eugenics for recognizing me for what I contribute to our community in support of our community. And I'm going to be framing my certificate. I just got it a few days ago. And I publicly thank the task force for this. And I will keep doing what I'm doing, because we need this support and commitment and dedication within our community so that we can excel to a higher level of consciousness in our everyday lives and seek therapy. So tell us again, I know you touched on it, about therapy versus these other types of treatment? Why is it important, and why do us as Black people shy away from therapy? Why? Can you shed some light on that too? Because we need therapy. A lot of us are out of control and we don't even recognize and realize it, and we're in denial about it. And we're
Well,
out of control with our behavior.
well, therapy basically is just a way of treating conditions through communication, verbal communication, and interaction. It's not some wahoo thing. Most psychiatrists won't even do therapy because it takes, like I said earlier, an hour or more, many sessions to get to a person's root problem. Therapy is only as good as the therapist. So, you have to kind of know what you're doing. The problem with therapy is, do we know if they are truly helping us find the problem that we have, or are they telling us we have this problem? A problem will only go away when you get the correct source of the problem. You
Right.
may be treating me because I have an abusive wife. The actual cause of why I take that from her, the reason I respond, maybe because mother died. So the thing is if we can't get to the root of it, then the therapy is no good. However, of all of the things that they seem to do in psychiatry, I think ability to sit down and talk to somebody, it as long as the Roman Catholic Church, when they used to go to confession, it's something that has always been there, where we talk. The Bible says, confess ye faults one to another. They tell us to do this thing. So this therapy isn't new. But when it's done incorrectly, it becomes a very interesting thing. The Bible says, how do you know that you see signs and wonders? Well, if you take the word, and this is a trick thing, but I'm gonna do it anyway. When you take the word therapist and break it down in syllables, you get the rape is. Okay. Only,
Oh, wow.
only somebody like me would figure that out. Don't worry about it. But no.
That is true. I just wrote it down. The rapist.
So the thing is that we must, but let me just say this. Every time I've been on a TV show, a debate, anything with therapists, and most of the times with psychologists, they agree with my message. I was at in Austin, Texas, at a college. They had a therapist on one side, a psychologist on the other side. I broke out what I do. I gave the facts and figures, and they even admitted it. The therapist said that I've never really met a person with ADHD. See, let me just tell you, how do you treat ADHD?
What is
Unless,
ADHD?
uh, attention deficit hyper disorder. How do you treat ADHD if in that particular patient, it might not even exist? Now, let me give you an example. I don't know how much time, but I got less
Got
than a minute.
about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. So a young man, I ran our own group homes for boys. We had a reputation of taking the toughest boys, and we were able to handle them. We produced NFL football players, ministers. We produced electrician supervisors, marathon runners, all out of this group home. We were one of the few who would not give the kids psychiatric drugs, because I understood as long as they had their own mind, I could get to them. When they had them psychiatric drugs causing other things, I couldn't. But I went to a group home because they had a boy they could not control. He had been a bad kid in their assessment, but he was smart enough to say, they're giving me these drugs because I'm acting out. So he would take the drugs, put them in his mouth, don't swallow, and then he would just act good so that they would know that he wasn't taking the drug. Well, one day, as fate would have it, he gets into it with one of the staff members, and the staff member said the words that triggered everything. "You must not be on your meds today." And he said, "I haven't been on the meds no day." And so they wanted to give it to him in liquid form. And this kid said, "No, I'm not taking it." So they called my group home and wanted me to interview him to see if we would take him. So I walked in and said, "Young man, you mind if I talk to you?" He said, "I don't really want to talk to you." I said, "But could you give me 5 minutes?" "Yeah, okay." So I'll just ask you some basic questions. What's the longest you ever played Nintendo? That's the games they were playing.
Right.
He said, "Hours." I said, "You ever win?" He said, "Yeah." "What's the longest you ever talked to a girl on the phone?" "All day." "Were you trying to make her your girlfriend?" "Yeah." "Did she become your girlfriend?" "Yeah." "You ever read a full comic book?" "Yeah." "Did you know what was going on at the end of the story?" "Yeah." "Can you play dominoes, checkers, or chess?" "I can play dominoes and chess." I say, "Do you ever win?" "Yeah." I said, "Now here's the last question. Would you like to come to my group home?" He said, "I think so." I said, "Okay, let me talk to the people." They came out, their psychiatrists, their social, all these people came out. "What kind of questioning was that?" I said, "He seems to be able to pay attention to anything he's interested in."
Absolutely.
So the thing is, when we're claiming a kid have ADHD, do we have ADHD or do the teacher have an inability to teach? Because we were able to teach them when they got to our group home. We had a tutor on staff who worked with them. We had a probation officer break down and cry, listening to a boy who could not, if you took several sheets of paper and wrote green with a letter on each sheet, he could not read his name. And we had him reading for his probation officer, and the probation officer broke down and cried. So when we talk about therapy, the therapy is only as good as the therapist. Because if you don't know what you're doing, if you done read all of these books, that's why I laugh when they talk about, "I have a PhD. Really? The reason I throw out, "I have a PhD," because I've been down in the trenches. Working.
Absolutely.
I've been finding out what the root of their problem is. I done healed some of these kids with giving them the proper thing that helped them. I sent a guy that they wanted to put in continuation school and put on drugs, and he ended up playing 4 years at USC and going into the NFL. They can't tell me because they can't produce that result.
That's why you have a PhD, and that's why I have a PhD. I have a bachelor's also from California State University, Long Beach, in social work. But I have a PhD because I've been in the trenches because of my son, David, who was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 14, now 42. And I have been dealing with all these different entities, the Department of Healthcare, County of Los Angeles, countywide health, mental health department, the city councils in California, and I mean the supervisors. I've written to the President of the United States, President Biden, Vice President Harris, with no response, of course. I've written to Governor Newsom of California with no response, of course. And that's why we have the PhDs and a lot of these, no disrespect to some of these PhDs who have gone to formal college, universities, and got their PhD. However, many of them have not been in the trenches. Like you said, they don't understand, they don't have the experience that one size does not fit all. You have to look at the uniqueness of that particular individual that you're dealing with, and you have to start where they are. And they don't do that. They look at the educational system as the same way. That's why the educational system here in America is still in the dark ages, because they're behind the times. It's like a one size fit all. And you made a profound statement when you said therapy is only as good as the therapist. And that is so true, because as you said, if you break it down, it's the rapist. There are a lot of therapists out here that are the rapists, because they are raping the people that they are supposedly helping
Oh,
to find the root cause of what their problems are. And they're not doing it because they don't know how to treat that person. And that's the problem that we're having, because what they want to do is put that person on a drug rather than listen to that person. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, because they're ready to just disregard what you're saying. And you ask all those questions. And by the time that young boy got done, he realized that you cared about him. That's what makes the difference, showing love and care. And a lot of them, they are just out for that money, like Big Pharma. It's a money thing. And when you follow that money, you're going to see where they're coming from. And another thing, when we talked about these policies, and again, everyone, I'm Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, the podcast you're listening to right now. My website is www.louisehicks. That will take you to all of my platforms, being X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, my YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of them. Go to my YouTube channel, AIMED, AIMED, the number 2 Purpose Radio. Subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share these videos, share, because you may be helping someone. You may be saving someone's life that could hear what we're talking about, and maybe they will seek out a therapist that is supportive of their needs, because a lot of this stuff is common sense. And a lot of us have lost what common sense is. And we're talking today about bringing psychiatry under the law. And we're talking about having therapy to help you live your best life on a daily basis. And Minister Shaw is my special guest. He has described what therapy is compared to some of these other methods that are used, such as shock treatments and medication. And if you have a good therapist, you can get to the root cause of what your needs may be. You may not need medication. And he's already put a disclaimer out here that a lot of the things he speaks, they are from his own personal perspective. And the same here with me. A lot of the things I speak about, they are from my own personal experiences, my own perspective. However, there is no freedom of speech, it appears, because if you say something that goes against the grains of the powers that shouldn't be, many of them, they will censor you and remove your content. And they will provide content that talk, and I'll say it again, about us as Black women, degrading us, about putting drugs in our community, about killing up one another. They don't remove any of that stuff that's produced by a lot of these record producers out here that are producing all of this filth that's going into our neighborhood, talking about us. You don't hear them talking about any of these other ethnicities and these other women, only the Black women. And I'm one, as I always tell everybody, I'm this mad Black woman, motivated and determined to help to elevate my people in the Black community to a higher level of consciousness so that we can live our best lives. And I have no problem speaking it and expressing it. And when it comes to parties, because they're the ones that make these policies. And when we talk about policies, Democrats do come to mind. And you know how their name ends on Democrats? Have you ever thought about it? DEMOCRATS. On the end of it, what does it say? RATS. So I look at them as a bunch of rats running around, implementing policies that aren't helping us. So I have not been a part, and I say that in all sincerity, Democrats, and I know you are a Democrat. You've been one all your life. I used to be. I have not been a Democrat since I was in my 30s. I became an independent person because Democrats, when we look at it, I'm just calling it from my perspective. Most Black people have voted for Democrats all of our lives. And if they were doing us any good, why are we still out here fighting for reparations, fighting for freedom? Because we don't have it. And we've been electing all of these Democrats. I call them Democrats, like I said. And the other ones are Republicats, because it's like the cats and the rats chasing one another. And when you look at it, they all come from one snake with two heads. So, and when you spoke about Trump. When I think about Trump, when he was in office, I didn't fare any worse under Trump than I am under Biden. In fact, I think I'm faring worse under Biden than I did under Trump, because what is Biden doing? He skates real hard when you talk about reparations, but he's given all this money to Ukraine, all of this money to, what's the other country he's given it to? I can't think of it right now.
Israel?
Oh yeah, Israel, other
They just,
countries, and what's that other one? It's one of those Hispanic, Latino countries. I can't think of it now. But he's given billions of dollars to Ukraine. They never voted for him. And I'm so happy of what happened in my home state where I was born, Louisiana. They just had, I think his name was Lowry, who won over a Democrat, one of the rats. And I don't have an issue with it because Black people did not vote. They said they stayed at home for a reason, because they're sick and tired of Democrats out here degrading Black people, like Biden told Black people on the Breakfast Club when he was speaking to Charlemagne the God, saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. That's an insult. Did he tell Asian people, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Asian? And most Asians don't even vote for him, from statistically speaking. Did he tell white people, if you don't vote for me, you ain't white? Did he tell Hispanic people, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Hispanic? No, he did not.
Well, the problem is, and it's been a long time proven, that people who can be bought lose the respect of those who can buy them. And, you know, what has happened is you throw enough money, then, you know, our African-American leadership will come up under the thumb, because because we don't give enough money to our own organizations. We don't do what we're supposed to do. Our wealthy people, be it sports athletes and stuff, they don't put the money where they need to put it, or they put it with the known remedy, and you don't really feed other things so that new innovative ideas can be born. We are doing a lot of things wrong, and that's it. But I want to say this, because when we talk about these psychiatric drugs, I want people to understand that unless it is a life-saving emergency, there's really not a lot of benefit, because the psychiatric drug, because they cause the addiction that makes it to where the person can never break free. Now I'm gonna show you something, and I'm gonna start showing this more. But this is a book, and I just want them to see this book. And then the book says,
as you hold it up again, I want to read the title on it. Hold it up again.
Okay, you want me to hold? Okay. Can
It
you see it?
says, I can't see it. Okay, there we go. It says psychiatric drugs, pull it back a little bit. Psychiatric drugs create violence and suicide, school shootings, and other acts of senseless violence. Who is that by? It's called Psychiatric Drugs Create Violence and Suicide, School Shootings, and Other Acts of Senseless Violence. And who is it by? I can't tell who is it by.
This is created by the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, where we have well-documented information supporting every single thing that is in here. And see,
Okay.
we think that they're helping us with these drugs. And there are rare cases that may be done to help get the person under control, but these drugs are highly addictive. And they don't tell you when you try. Let me show you the trick. This is the trick. When you break loose from the psychiatric drugs, they can cause a psychotic break. Well, the moment you have the psychotic break, they say, see, that is a sign you need drugs. They're not telling you that you can't break away from these drugs because they're highly addictive and they create that effect. That's why you hear people, I'm on drugs I can never get off of in life. What? Never get off of in life? What kind of drug is that? Well, it's psychiatric drugs. Now, I know, because I always try to be fair, if your heart is bad enough condition, then you'll be on the medicine because the heart is being kept alive because of the medicine. But most of us that are type 2 diabetics, we can be on all kind of, but if we reduced our intake of food, and if our pancreas is still working, we can overcome that. See, so the thing is, unless the body is so damaged that you cannot handle it without medication, then, you know, when we look at these people with the mental health thing, what is the drug doing? You know, and we can talk about this at another show, you know that they have debunked the chemical imbalance of the brain theory. Now, you've been hearing all these years about chemical imbalance of the brain. The University College of London did a study. They took, oh my God, what was it, 13 or 19 studies. I forget which one it was. And they thoroughly went through them. And they found no evidence of the chemical imbalance of the brain theory having any validity. They even found that serotonin has nothing to do with depression.
Yeah,
But
I've heard about that.
why is that not reported? Because they make 15.6 billion a year of treating the chemical imbalance of the brain theory. Now, if you think they're gonna stop selling those drugs because we know that the drug, that there is no chemical imbalance of the brain, you know, and just because the brain shows differences when you do your scans and all that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. And if it is something wrong, they don't have the ability to detect it correctly. What I want your audience to do is get this idea. There is no clinical trials. There is no proof that these diagnoses are valid. They are, when you look at the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, those diagnoses that are in that book are done by a show of hands, not by clinical trials, not by any scientific method. It is done by show of hands. This is tough news because they have put this stuff deep into our system, into our mind. But there's nothing to it. You know, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual doesn't even have statistics in it. So,
and how do they and what you're saying is true about that manual too, because I remember having a psychologist on our show when my son Kenan and I were doing Aim to Purpose radio show, and he talked about that, and he was saying you can't, there is not a diagnosis like all the stuff you've just said. And I was listening to you, I was looking up that name of that governor's race in Louisiana. And I was still listening to what you were saying, though, to our audience. And that manual, they have, it's not like you can go and do a blood test and you can come up with results and things. They can't come up with any results based on a test because there is none. Is that correct?
That's correct. You know, I used to say in my
So,
speech, I used to debate psychiatrists when they stopped debating me. And I used to say, so when you came up with your diagnosis, you took a blood test. There was no, you did a biopsy. There's no biopsy.
right.
Okay. So did you have full medical examination? Did you do the, well, the answer was always no. I say, well, then you're not a psychiatrist, you're a psychic, because you can just look into somebody's eyes and determine what type of mental illness. Oh, that's some high grade, since a medical doctor can't do that with with medicine. So these are the things that we're looking at. So you got this field out here that is making all of this money. And there we go. I want to comment on another thing off topic a little bit. And
Oh,
this is why.
let me correct this really quick. When I was
Okay.
talking about the governor of the winner in Louisiana, I did give the wrong name. His name is Jeff Landry, and he is a Republican, and he won in Louisiana in the governor's race, and
You
he
said,
was running against a Democrat, and he won. And they were saying over the internet, the reason he won, and keep your thought, Minister Shaw, is because of Black folks not going out to vote. And Biden's team now, they're running scared because they have insulted Black people so much over the past 4 years. He and his vice president, Kamala Harris, and she even spoke and said she wasn't going to do anything specifically for Black people when she was running for, I believe she was running for president or either the attorney general in California or something like that. And I'm from California, just like you're in California, from California too. Uh, she she didn't do anything specifically for Black people, and she said she wasn't. But as soon as that Asian situation, that shooting down in Georgia, she and President Biden put out an executive order immediately. They've never put out an executive order to stop the killings of Black people. And Black people need to stop killing one another too. And I know other ethnicities kill one another too, but they haven't gone through the atrocities that Black people have gone through. All the more reason we need to stop it. And I hear that crime is running rampant in my home town, Shreveport, where I was born in Louisiana. However, all of my life has been spent in California. So I'm praying that this new Jeff Landry, who is a Republican, will do something about the crime down there. I know it's from the state, has to be down to the local level. However, some of the money comes from the taxpayers who pay federal income taxes, so it should trickle down from the federal government and from the states as well. So I'm hoping he will do something about it. But I don't care who you vote for. But I'm not voting for Democrats. I didn't vote for them last term. I'm not voting for them this term because I call them Demorats because they do not do anything for Black people. Biden, and he insulted Black people by telling us if we don't vote for him, we ain't Black. And that's an insult. And to keep insulting us and think that we're going to give you our vote, no, I'm not giving you my vote. And that's final. I didn't give it to you last time. You're not getting it this time. I didn't vote for Trump either. However, I can say I didn't suffer any under Trump, no more than I have under Biden. So be it. I really don't care if Trump does win. And it looks like it's a lot of people voting for him. I tell you that. So
well,
be it.
well, I think everybody has a right to vote for who they want. You don't have to
Absolutely.
say who you voted for. It's nobody's business. That's why you go into a booth by yourself with everything, and you're the only one that can see what you're doing. So there's a reason
Right.
for that. And so I think that that's good. My problem is with the leadership of this country can send out another $100 billion to Israel and Ukraine, but we can't get the people off the streets right here. We want to
Absolutely.
democracy out there, but we can't create democracy right here. And when I'm abused by a system, when we're not given, they've been talking reparations for years. Governor Newsom is talking reparation. Every Black person who can prove that they were part of slavery and so forth get $1.3 million. Yeah, but what year would that happen? Will all of the people here on planet Earth right now already be dead? You trying to win an election on that right now. So, it's like the same old game being played over and over.
Absolutely.
Attach themselves to the greed. Oh, they'll vote for you because all of them want the money. And then, and I actually told one of his representatives, I don't want us to get caught up in the paralysis of analysis to the point that none of us even still alive when they make the decision.
True. Absolutely.
So,
they all are just talking, including Governor Newsom. They're talking the talk, but they're not walking the walk. They want your vote, but once they get your vote, the Democrats particularly, because the Republicans, they probably can care less whether they get your vote or not. But the Democrats know they need the Black vote in order to win. That's why they lost down in Louisiana. Black people are fed up with all of this rhetoric and nonsense and talking down to us and not delivering any tangibles. We need tangibles. And if you're not going to deliver, we need to stop giving you our vote. Bottom line. So I'm not telling you who to vote for. It's up to you. And I didn't say who I voted for, but I said who I didn't vote for, because who you vote for is your business. However, those Democrats that ends in rats have not done anything to enhance it. And well, that's how it spells, DEMOCRATS. And they haven't done anything to enhance the Black lives, and Black people keep giving them our votes. Has anybody from what's that country, Ukraine, voted for them? No, they putting them. Oh, and the people in Chicago and the people in New York, they are pissed off. I just heard that the people in Chicago just filed some kind of petition or something to stop all of this migration. And you know where they're coming from. Governor Abbott over here in Texas is sending them out of here.
Yep.
So it's a lot going on, and it all relates back to psychiatry, really, because it's about the mindset and what's going on in your brain and your mind. And these policies that these politicians are putting forth, they aren't interested in reform for psychiatry, because it's a money thing, and they're bought by big pharma. That's the bottom line. You follow the money, as we've said before. So anyhow, I think we better wrap it up. So go ahead, Minister Shaw, and say you wanted to expound on some other things, and we'll wrap it up in just a few.
No, I just want people to basically understand that I'm not trying to convince them not to do anything with a therapist or whatever. I'm trying to give them the information and provide the sources in which they can get the information from that will allow them to be able to make an informed decision for themselves. If a person just wants to do electroshock, I'm not a person to tell you not to. If you want to take psychiatric drugs, I'm not a person to tell you not to. I just want you to know the consequences. I want you to know that cocaine and Ritalin and Adderall and meth are very similar drugs, and they fit in the same addictive categories and things like that. I'm just giving you the information so you can decide for yourself.
And that's what we need to do. It's all about information, and it's up to you as an individual to make that decision. No one should be allowed to dictate what you put in your body. That should be up to you as to what you want to put in your body. But it seems a different story when it comes down to our government. They want to censor even what you say, even if it's your own experience. because I gave an experience about my daughter who was in a Christian school back when she was in elementary, and when my son that was 14 had cancer. They wanted me to put her on Ritalin, candy cocaine, as if they were doctors and they were teachers. I told them, no, I will take her out of this Christian school. This is a Christian school in Long Beach, California, advocating me to put my daughter on Ritalin. And when I have already explained to them that we are going through some challenges now because of my son that's 14 that has cancer, and my daughter who's 6 is not getting, she might have been 5, she was 5 or 6, wasn't getting the attention that she felt she deserved. She wanted to be sick like my son because she didn't understand that he was in a life and death situation. So what we've done today is share information with you to help you to better understand that there are comparisons out here with therapy and how you as the individual can make the best decision so you can have your best life and get to the root cause of whatever you may be struggling with in your day-to-day life. And a lot of times we don't want to go to therapists. As Minister Shaw said, the therapy is only as good as your therapist. And that is a true statement, because if you break it down, therapists, you could come out with the rapist. So you don't want to go to a rapist, you want to go to a good therapist that can help you find the root cause of what your problem might be and what you're dealing with without medication. And nobody is saying that medication is not good. Minister Shaw explained all of that. So it's up to you to make that decision on what you want to do with your life in terms of having a healthier life and having a healthy mindset that you can live your best life with every day. And again, I'm Louise Hicks, your host of this podcast, Aim to Purpose Empowerment, Spiritual Empowerment Hour. Go to my YouTube channel, AIMED2 Purpose Radio. Subscribe, give it a thumbs up, share. By all means, share this video. You may help save somebody's life by getting information that can help to enhance their knowledge and their lives. And we'll have a final thought from Minister Shaw, and we're going to close out the show for today. And we've had a great show. Thank you so much, Minister Shaw, for coming in and sharing all this vital information with us.
No, thank you for having me on the show. I just want them to know, if you want to know the information that I know and where I get it from, go to CCHRINT.org, CCHRINT.org. That stands for the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International. If you want to communicate with me, if you're a professional, someone who wants to be part of the task force against racism in modern day eugenics, email me at fshawjr@yahoo.com. F Shaw, you spell Shaw, SHAWJR@yahoo.com, and put in the subject line either Aim to Purpose or Louise Hicks, and I'll know where it came from, and you know that you were watching this show, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible.
And by all means, please go. And we went a little more than an hour today, close to an hour and a half, but it was important information that we are imparting to you. And we touched on a lot of subject matter that really relates to our topic today, which is psychiatry, bringing psychiatry under the law, and how therapy in your daily life can help you to live your best life. Because everything we talked about centers around policy and politics. Actually, that's what it all amounts to. So maybe one day psychiatry will come under the law, and it will be humane to help people to live a better life. Because now we know there are a lot of people on different psychiatric drugs, and they do have effects that can create suicide. And Minister Shaw did hold the book up that's put out by CCHR. How could someone get that book, by the way, Minister Shaw?
What we'll do is I'll get you the website, and because they have it online. And
Oh, okay.
so you probably can can locate it by going to the CCHRINT.org, or you can Google psychiatric drugs create violence and suicide, and you could
Okay.
probably there. In
Okay,
fact,
great. Because some people may want to get the book and read it because it has, they said they've done research, and the information in this book is factual. And it doesn't look like it's a big book that would take you a long time to read it. So by all means, go to the CCHRINT.org, or send your email to fshawjr@yahoo.com, and he can tell you more. And he said he will give me the information on how to get that book, and I will make sure I put it out. And again, I want to thank for this beautiful certificate that I got for my work in the field of mental health with the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International's Task Force Against Racism and Modern Day Eugenics. And go to my website, because we did do an episode about modern day eugenics as well. And you'll find it on my website. I don't know whether I have it uploaded yet on my YouTube channel, but I will if I haven't, because all of the Facebook Live have not been put on my YouTube channel yet. I'm working on it. So anyhow, with that said, always remember. Oh, did you want to say something else, Minister Shaw?
Yeah, they can just Google psychiatric drugs, create violence and suicide.
Okay, repeat that again.
They can look at psychiatric drugs, create violence and suicide. So they just put a colon, there's two parts to it. So psychiatric drugs, violence and suicide. It'll find it.
Okay. And you can get that book, because that might be a good read that can help someone overcome committing suicide. You never know, it could save a life. So by all means, share this video, because we've shared some very, very significant and important information to help out. And as you all know, I always stress that we in the Black community, we need all the help we can get, because we have a lot of things going on within the Black community that we need to focus on ourselves. And a lot of us are so busy focusing on Jada and Will and Beyonce and what's his name that she's married to, Jay-Z. We don't have time to focus on our own lives. And that's so important. We need to, that's a distraction, because it's not helping you to focus on these people when they aren't focusing on you. A lot of it is to sell books. I hear Jada has a new book out. So focus on your own life, and let's stop being distracted by all this celebrity drama, because that's all it is, a bunch of toxic drama. So focus on your own life. And with that said, again, thank you, Minister Shaw, for being present. And I hope we can have our panel next Sunday. Do you know if the panel will be able to come? I sent out an email to the panel. So hopefully Dr. Shima Johnson, Victor Trammell, and Jewel Bowen, you and myself, that's our panel. So hopefully we all can come on. I did send out an email with a topic that we might want to discuss next Sunday. So I'll be following up on that. And if that be the case, we will have the panel on next Sunday, and we'll be discussing a significant topic as well. So with that said, everyone, thank you all for joining. Thanks again, Minister Shaw. Have a great rest of your evening. Have a great weekend. And as I always say, your power lies within you. Let it loose, because your destiny is your command. So see you all next time. Much love. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks, Minister Shaw. See you all next week.
Thank you.
Good night.